Coming up in today's video, we take a look at how I painted my British 14th Army tanks. I describe in detail every step I took to achieve a realistic weathered jungle green. The steps in this video will include airbrushing, painting, and weathering. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave me a comment below. Alright guys, so we want to paint our models to represent those of the 14th Army in India. So we'll be painting our tanks in SCC 13. I'll be using some lead tanks from Battlefront miniatures. I've also got some Stuarts which I'll be painting at a later date. So to start off with, I prime my model with Tamiya Surface Primer Light Grey. And then I hit it with XF51, XF61 and XF3 at a 2:1:1 ratio. Now, if you don't like mixing colors, I'm sorry, but this is probably the closest you're going to get to jungle green, or at least the jungle green we're going for in this tutorial. If you're using Tamiya colors, I'm sure there might be other manufacturers that might make a jungle green or SCC 13, but this mix works really well for me. So I always like to give it a decent coat. I've set my airbrush up to 20 psi and I'm using a 0.2mm needle and nozzle. And then because I'm batch painting, I can go straight back to giving my models a second coat. It's really important you do this because there's a good chance you'll probably miss a little bit. And then I mix my paints using this method. So to get an accurate ratio, I just let the paint drip off my tool. So you could use a toothpick for this, whatever you've got, and just let them drip in there and just count each one so you can get that right ratio. And then we go to a 2:1:2 ratio of XF51, XF61 and XF3. So this now is going to become a little bit more lighter. It's going to have a little bit of a yellowy tinge to it. And I'm going to be doing a very casual form of modulation. So I'm picking out the panels and I'm just spraying in the middle of them, and we're going to build it up to an even brighter color next. So just pick out the panels. Obviously you don't want to be painting the whole thing in this, you're just picking out the details. Each individual panel, a hatch, the top of the turret, around the sides of the turret, but leaving the very outer edges in that original base color. Now we do a bit more mixing, so we go to 2:1:3 ratio, so XF51, 61 and XF3. So now we're doing 3 parts of XF3. So XF3 is flat yellow, and this is going to make it a lot lighter. It's also going to have that yellowy tinge, as I said before. Now I'm just picking out specific areas and I'm just doing little sprays in the middle of those areas. So the very middle of the panel is going to be really bright, and then the outer part is going to be bright but not as bright as the middle, and then the very outer part is going to be the original base color. And that's how we're going to make it really stand out and pop. At 15mm, this tutorial will also work obviously at 172mm. You could probably even use it for 28mm as well, because the practice is all the same. Then once we've done, we wanted to give it a gloss coat and then apply your decals. I've got a video on that, I'll link that in the description. It's really bright in this shot because I had the light right up close to it, but the green looks really good. Now if you're wondering where I got the decals from, I actually got them from a company called Miscellaneous Miniatures. I reached out to them and said, if I give you some of the info on the 254th Indian Tank Brigade, would you be able to print me some decals? They said yes, as long as they could put it on their store. So that's what they've done. So if you go to where I've shown you here, you can scroll down. It's one of the latest packs in there, and you can download yourself a set, buy yourself a set of the 254th Indian Tank Brigade markings, and they'll be good for your Lees, your Shermans, your Grants, your Stuarts, Universal Carriers, and anything else. Now we've got a decal. Now we've got the decals on and we've given it a gloss coat. We can give it an enamel wash, so make sure you're giving it a gloss coat because we don't want to damage the paint with the enamel wash. And I'm doing a pin wash here. Now some people like to really coat it on and then come back and clean it later. I just think it's unnecessary work in terms of cleaning, so a pin wash will really help for this. Just make sure you're using an older brush and a finer brush as well, and just pick out the details. You can mix the black thinners with a little bit of odorless thinners just to get it a little bit more thinned down, but normally that's pretty good straight out of the bottle. And then we use those odorless thinners on a cotton bud or an old brush, and you just clean up a little bit of the mess. Enamel thinners will spread out quite a bit, so you need to clean it up. I normally give it about 15 minutes after I've applied it to come along and clean it. Any later it starts becoming a bit too difficult. It all depends on how much you've put down as well. If you've absolutely coated it in, you might need to leave it a little bit longer, but because we're doing a pin wash, it's relatively quick drying time. Then we move to the wheels. So we're using German grey for this. German grey is a fantastic rubber colour. To me, it also do a rubber colour that you can paint straight out the pot, but German grey works really nicely. Again, I'm using a pretty fine brush for this. The reason I'm doing that is just because it's a bit of a pain to get all the details here, and you can easily make a mistake. So using that finer brush just means we've got a bit more control, and we can paint the wheels without hitting the hubs or anything like that. And then to paint the tracks, I'm using black, so it doesn't have to be a Vallejo color, it can be any black, but just a black for this. Some people like to go straight into a brown, some people go into like a rusty color. If you want to give it more of a cartoony look, you could go into a straight up silver, but you're never going to see tracks that are silver unless they haven't been used. So I would definitely recommend going black first, and then we can build up to a bit more of a worn track color. So to weather these tracks, I use Imphal wash and just smother it all around. You can put it over the black tracks as well. So I'll put it over the wheels, over the rest of the assembly and the tracks. Now you can see I've got the tracks loose. So much more easier to paint them when they're like this. Just put a bit of blue tack on them, slap them on the model when you're airbrushing so it all aligns up, and then you can take them off at the painting step and you're going to make your life 10 times easier. And then for the metallic steps, I'm using German grey. So this tow cable here, or cable, the metal part of the axe I'll be painting in German grey, machine guns, yeah, anything like that, you know what I mean. So just anything you got that's metal, if you got storage on there as well, you can paint it in this German grey if it's got metal elements to it. Cool, and now for the wood, we use flat earth. So flat earth is a really good wooden colour. You can use other colours like old wood, German camo medium brown, colours like that, and just make sure you're taking your time. I'm always using a fine brush, because if you try and rush the process, you're just going to make mistakes and you're just going to end up disliking what you've done. You might like it, but if you're a bit of a perfectionist, or if you want something to look a particular way, there's no point trying to rush it. As easy as it can be to do, I always find myself rushing parts. Just take your time. Now we dry brush the tracks in flat brown. Now the reason I do that is because it gives it a really weathered look. It also gives it a bit of a rusty tinge to it. And from the tracks that I've seen, it actually looks really good. So just make sure that you're using an older brush for this, because you're going to damage your brushes over time when you're dry brushing. You can get proper dry brushing brushes, but I use this because I want a bit more of a precise dry brush, and then I go to a really old worn brush and dry brush the parts that aren't going to be hitting the wheels. And then you can give it just a little dry brush. Now I'm talking a very minute amount of paint on your brush of base lead belcher. So it's a silver color, and I'm just running it on the very outer edge. I'm just getting little bits here and there, just to give the eye a bit of silver to work with, but not coating the tracks in silver to the point where it looks too cartoony or unrealistic. So just get the little bits that you're going to be able to see. There's no point doing the bottom of it because that's going to be on the table. There's no point really doing the tops because that's going to be hidden as well. Now we want to move on and paint on jerry cans. So when we're talking about British jerry cans, there was a whole different variety of colours that they used. There was sort of different shades of green, there was reds, there was sandy colours. So you can use your imagination here. So I've used different shades of green. The reason I'm using different shades of green is quite simple. It's just to stop the jerry cans looking like big green blobs. The different shades just give them their own identity and make them stand out a bit more. Same with the reds, so I'm separating the reds. I'm not putting the reds right next to each other. Obviously we're going to wash these to give them more details and to make them look weathered, but the different shades really does help with that process as well. Now to paint any lights, I use Luftwaffe Uniform World War II. It's a grey blue colour and it just works really well for lights at this scale. Just use your very fine brush here and just take your time. Now we want to give all of our wooden objects a wash of Umbar wash. So I use a pin wash. I always really operate with pin washes. I very rarely don't use a pin wash. I didn't use a pin wash for the wheel assembly or the track assembly, but when we're talking about equipment, I always try and use a pin wash. So wash your wooden objects, so the shovel and the axe, with Umbar wash, and any other wooden objects you might have crates if you've got storage, tops and stuff like that. Now we want to wash the jerry can, so I use null oil from Citadel. I also want to wash any metallic objects, so the tow cable, machine guns, bits of the axe and shovel, and anything else that you can see on there that needs a good wash. If you haven't checked out my social medias, please do. I've got a Facebook and Instagram, and any of your follows or support on those is also greatly appreciated. So again, as I've said many a time now, I just pin wash these items because I don't want to ruin what we've done. If I go too heavy, these washes can pull and then they become really difficult to remove and they look pretty bad. So I go over the lights with Luftwaffe Uniform. I've actually hit them with a black wash and I'm going back over them with this same colour. This process is tedious because this is all you're going to do now. Now we've washed all these bits of equipment and these items, we've just got to go back over them with the exact same colour, picking out the details. With the jerry cans you can add scratch marks in with the same colour. I didn't highlight them any further than just the original base colour, just because there really is no need. I didn't want to take too much time on these, just wanted to get them done quickly. But you can highlight them with lighter greens and lighter reds. And then to finish off the lights, I hit it with a little dab of white grey. Now I put 2 lines on these. You can put a little dot, you don't have to put 2 lines, but 2 lines seems to work well for me. It tricks the eye, gives it a bit more of a bulby, lighty look. Yeah, it's up to you. Now we're going over the metal objects with German grey. With the tow cable, it's sort of wound right next to itself, so you've got to pick out the 2 bits of that cable. So there's 2 lines towards the front end, and just pick out the details. Same with the guns and all the tools and that they've got on there. And then to highlight our metallic objects, I'm using base lead belcher from Citadel, and I'm just picking out the little bits of it that I can. With the tow cable, I'm just putting little dots, as you can see, sort of scratching them on there, just so it's giving that bit of a reflection from the sun. That's the look that I'm going for, and that's all you really need to do with a highlight, especially at this scale. You don't have to go too mental, because you only need to trick the eye into thinking that it is what it is. If they get right up close with a magnifying glass, then they might go, oh well, that's not what you should be painting it like. But trust me, they're not ever going to do that. And then for the wood, we're going back over it with flat earth, and then we can highlight it, and I used orange brown for the wooden highlight. I forgot to show you this in the actual video, but yeah, I use orange brown as I always do. It's the same with my other tutorials when I'm talking about wood. And then to weather and add chipping to our tank, I'm using German Camo Beige. So German Camo Beige is a really good light green sort of colour. So this is going to work really nicely. I wouldn't recommend like green greys. I think beige works really well, so you can just use ordinary beige. German Camo Beige is quite good for this as well. And you can see I'm just adding in little dots here and there. Wherever there's going to be a lot of use, so the doors, where they're going to be climbing up and down from the tank, we're going to be adding in chips here and scratches. So that's the whole purpose of this. If it's going to be driving next to a tree, we can put a scratch along the side So try and capture that if you can. And then once you've done all of your chips, you can go over it with German camo black brown. And when I say go over it, I mean more like you add bits of this German camo black brown in the middle of the German camo beige, just to show that it's hit the metal underneath the paint. So the German camo beige is just a light scratch. The black brown is the metal that's coming through those scratch marks. You don't have to do this. You could probably just get away with just leaving the German camo beige, but this step is very quick compared to the beige. The beige takes you quite a while because you have to really think about it. This part you just go over the really dark, bigger areas that you've got that beige. Now we want to add some streaks to this. These were in India. India's renowned for different climates, obviously being really hot and also very rainy at times. So I'm using rust effects for this one from MIG. It's an enamel wash, so just make sure that you haven't put a flat varnish over it. So you've got that enamel wash protected when you want to clean it up, and just add straight lines along the sides of the vehicle. Now I want to add some streaking grime to it as well. So the orange and the brown grime or lines that we're adding in here are really going to complement the green nicely. So just again adding nice straight lines. You can add them next to rivets, anywhere that might be like a hatch that might have been open, that some dirt might have run down, where the rain's going to sort of be running down or even pooling. But yeah, this can be a really quick step or it can be a really long step. I always try and make this step pretty quick, so it can be a little bit rough at times as well. Now I use odorless thinner and an old brush. I try and use like a finer brush. I know some people will use a very old thick brush for this, but I think the finer one just helps you pick out the streaks. You can add one streak that stands out a lot more than others, but the whole purpose of this is just to make sure that you're getting rid of the bulk of that wash or that streaking grime that you've put down. You can let it pool at the bottom as well, because obviously when they're sitting out and the rain's just accumulating or the dirt's accumulating on the side, it's going to pool anyway, so it actually makes it really nice. It gives it a really cool effect. But you can see that you can pick out certain rivets as if it's a bit loose and it's got rusted, and the rust is streaking down the side of the tank. So it's a really cool step to do, and it makes your vehicle look really great. And then finally we can glue on the tracks. So gluing these tracks on is so satisfying because you can finally at the end or close to the end, and the weathering just needs to be completed. So for the weathering, I always use this. You can use pigments, but I use Tamiya Weathering Master for this. It's just such an easy way of doing it, and I just smash it on there. These were so dusty, these tanks, so you could go really heavy, but for this scale, I want people to see the decals, I want people to see the work that I've put in, I want people to see the streaks, etc. So I go as heavy as I can without losing a lot of that detail. So I'm using light sand color here. You could use an orange color, because I believe the dust in India is a bit more orange than it is sandy, but it really doesn't matter. You're not going to really be able to tell. And then I use black soot from Weathering Master B, and I'm just hitting the turrets, the actual cannon and anything like that. So you can add on little bits on the machine gun as well if you really wanted to. And then we can give it a flat clear spray from Tamiya just to seal it all, make it all look pretty and stop the shine. And then the last step I want to do is add a gloss varnish onto the lights, but this is literally just a dot of gloss varnish. And once that's dry, it's going to give us a nice glassy effect, and we're going to be happy with how those lights look, hopefully. And then there we go. So there they are finished. I didn't show you how I did my storage, just because this video would have gone on for a bit too long. I know some people like a quick video, others like ones that are a bit more in depth, but I try and keep them under 20 minutes where I can. So I think the storage will be a video for another time. But what did you think of it? Did you like the 14th Army? Is this something you want me to keep showing, or should I just keep it to myself? I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I think they came out so well, and those streaks really do make the vehicle stand out, or vehicles. But yeah, let me know if you're new here. Please like and subscribe. you know, the channel's growing really nicely. I've been doing it for over a year now, and I try and get painting tutorials out once a week, if not once a fortnight. And I try and obviously do different scales and such. But the 14th Army isn't going anywhere for me. It just depends on whether you guys want to see more of it. But other than that, I'll stop rambling on. I really appreciate your support, and I will catch you guys at the next one. Thanks.